So, welcome to this, everyone. Sorry for the delay and the technical things, but again, as I stated, this is the world of virtual reality, and here we are. So, in the chat session, I put a link for Miro, so I'd appreciate it very much if you would start joining the Miro board. If you've never used Miro, that's fine. We'll talk you through stuff, but that's where the presentation is going to be, and we're going to have some activities as well. Okay, so I'll give you a few
Steve,
minutes.
we have
Yes.
a Zoom meeting link. Will you please check again?
Oh, sorry about that. I will do that. Hang on, let me get it for you. I got too many windows up. Okay, there's the Miro link.
You got it.
Great, thank you very much. And if you could, Carlos, if as new people come in, if you could repost that Zoom link, I'd appreciate, or the Miro link, I'd appreciate it very much.
For sure. Go ahead,
Great,
no problem.
great.
I will use the chat for do that.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. So again, my name's Steve Crego. I'm the founder and CEO of Phoenix Rising Transformation. It's my own company. I created it after I got laid off about 1.5 years ago from IBM. That's how Carlos and I know each other. So the first thing I want to do is a little activity. I want to find out where everybody's from. So if you see the world map that I just shared, please put a +1 in the chat window. So I know that you're there. I can see some of you now. You can go ahead and blow up that vision. If you go to the bottom right hand side, you can zoom to it. Grab one of those stick pins and put it wherever you're located at. I'd appreciate that very much so we can see where everyone is at. And I'm going to try to get this chat window to close. And we'll just give you a minute or two to get in there. We got a whole bunch of people from South America and Latin America, and just move those things around. And yes, I've locked everything, so the only thing you can move right now is those stick pins. And if you need to enlarge it, again, you can zoom, and it's on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. I'm seeing more stuff being put in there. Okay, awesome. And if you can't figure out how to use Miro, just in the chat window, just put down where you're at, where you're from, or where you're at, whether, a country or state, that's fine, locality. That way everyone can participate. I see some more stuff moving in there. Okay, goodness. Yeah, we got a lot down there. Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to move on. And today I'm going to talk about Agile and culture. And again, my name's Steve Crego, and I'm the founder and CEO of Phoenix Rising Transformation. I've been involved in Agile since before the conference where they created the Agile Manifesto. I was involved in extreme programming way back in the late 1990s and early 2000s. I grew up as a software developer and architect, and that's how I was introduced to Agile. So I've been around for a long time. I actually had a full head of hair, and it was brown when I first started learning Agile. So obviously I've been around for a long time. Moving right along. The first thing I want to do is I want you to tell me what you think culture is. And so in the Zoom chat window, put your response in there and let me know what you think culture is. And we'll give you about two or 3 minutes to do that. So in the chat, please put down what you think culture is. Thank you very much. Andrea said, how we do things. Franco said, it's how we do things around here. I've seen that somewhere before. How we do things, yep, how we behave. Thank you, Val. Lots of good stuff coming in, obviously. Thank you very much. Okay, yeah, this is all correct. You're doing great. Values, principles, behaviors, how we do things. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to go to the next slide, and that's exactly it. How we do things around here. And it could be in your community, it could be in your family, but since we're talking about work stuff, it's how you do things at work. And that's all established by the leadership and the original founders. So for instance, I have my own company. I created my own culture for my company. And that culture is what any new employees are going to find is how we do things around here. Okay. Now, when we think about culture, we also understand that there's basically two levels of culture. The first one is the one that everybody sees. It's above the water. You know, you think about an iceberg. Very little part of the iceberg is above the water. Most of it is below the water. So the culture that's above the water is the behaviors that you allow people to see. It's your actions and your habits. Now, the culture that's below the water has to do with your values and your beliefs and your mindsets and your assumptions. So those are things that you may not always see all the time, okay? So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about culture. And some of the great people, great thought leaders of culture are people like John Cotter and James Heskoff and William Schneider. These are all great organizational culture thinkers in the world. They've got several books. If you're interested in some of those books, you know, send me a private message on LinkedIn or here in the chat, and I can provide you with the names of this book. But I got a whole bookshelf full of things about culture and Agile from some pretty awesome people. Some other folks in the Agile world, a guy named Michael Sahota. He wrote one of the first books on Agile and culture. It's a really small book years ago. It's a fantastic thing. He's updated it once or twice, but that's a lot of really good stuff when we think about culture. Now, the other part of culture that we need to be aware of, and it doesn't matter what your role is, whether you're an Agile practitioner or a Scrum Master or iteration manager or a coach, it just doesn't matter, is there's going to be all kinds of obstacles to any kind of a culture change, whether it's Agile or not, okay? And so some of those things have to do with people not understanding what behaviors might be required in a new culture. You think about when you joined a new company or maybe you got transferred to a new organization, a lot of times we don't get enough time to learn about the organization culture that we have. And so when we go through a culture change, I remember when IBM went through their Agile transformation, a lot of people didn't understand what that meant in regards to how they work and what they do. And that caused a lot of problems. The other obstacle is that leaders don't understand their role and how to help change the culture based on what you're trying to do. So it's not just the people that are, you know, I call it the people that are the rubber on the road, you know, the ones that do the actual work. But the leaders oftentimes don't know what to expect either. And so they have problems. That causes some obstacles. Another one is, you know, you think about the practices and principles involved in current way of working. So when I first went through my Agile transformation back in the 2000s, I was a software developer and architect, and we did things a certain way. And we had certain practices and principles, and you know, we do transformation the right way. We were told, well, you just got to do it this way and don't worry about it. Well, you know, being the kind of person I was back then, it's like, what do you mean don't worry about it? I've been doing this for 15 years and you're telling me it's not any good. And so you have to be aware that this causes some obstacles. And there's other stuff on here, and I'll give you a copy. I'll make a PDF version of this presentation available. But these are just some examples of some core obstacles that we need to be prepared to help each other during this transformation. So that leads us to the next one, is how do we remove these obstacles? So I want to hear from you in the chat session. Tell me how you think you could help remove some of these obstacles that I just discussed anytime you have a culture change, and it doesn't have to be an agile transformation, it could be anything. There's all kinds of obstacles that we can do to help change. And we'll give it another minute or two. Awareness first, yes, absolutely. Thank you, Carlos. A clear sense of purpose, Jose, awesome, great. Mentoring and coaching, yes, fantastic. Transparent communication, Sandra, thank you very much. That's great. And these are all just different ways that you can do things. And again, this isn't just for any agile transformation. This is any kind of a transformation. I remember the transformation I had to make when I went from being a single young man to a married young man. There were some obstacles there I had to overcome. And these are all different things that we have to consider, whether it's at work or at home. We all have certain cultural changes that we have to experience. Anna, that's a great one. Communicate how you expect people to behave via meetings, emails, training, role playing, etc. Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. Good stuff. So now we're going to talk about some accelerators to change. And we think about accelerators, these are going to be things that's going to help us involved in the chain. And some of you have already said some of these things. We're talking about communicating a common vision, getting everybody involved, having a clear communication process and plan to make sure everybody's aware. Make sure that when you talk about an agile transformation or any kind of cultural change at your organization or your business, you need to make sure that the leadership agrees with it and supports it. Because if you don't have support from the leadership is usually the ones that helps the culture change, because people look towards the leaders to set the example. And so if the leader isn't following the example of the change that's desired, then a lot of times the people that work for that leader won't follow that example as well. And so there's all kinds of different things. And yeah, I've got about 11 different things in here that can help you. But there's a lot more stuff. We need to communicate and collaborate with each other. One of the things I do when I go in to help organizations and companies change is I find out how they're currently doing things and what's working. What's working? If something is working and your clients are happy and your teams are happy and leadership is happy, what do you need to change for? Think about that. If everything's working good, why do you need to change? What you want to change is things to help you either get better or things that's not working so good. So, when you think about going in, especially for Agile coaches, you don't go in with a specific plan in mind. You don't go in with a specific framework. You don't go and say, oh, everybody's going to do safe, and you haven't even met the team yet. Okay, that's not a very good way to be an Agile coach. You should go in with an empty slate, being completely neutral, and find out how they're doing things and ask them what they think they need to change, because you need to work within their culture before you can even think about asking them to change your culture for certain things. Okay, so these are just, again, some more accelerators, making sure that team roles are defined and understood, not just the roles, but what are their responsibilities? A lot of people, one day they're a project manager and the next day, boom, they're a scrum master and they have no idea what the heck you're talking about. So you got to be aware of that. Okay, so make sure that the roles are defined. You want to get small teams and stuff. And again, I'm not going to read this whole thing to you. You can read it later on. And again, I'll make it available to anyone that wants it. Okay. So putting it all together, you think about, there's basically, I got 6 levers here or ways to do things. And so you can look at some of the potential obstacles and look at the 6 ways of helping remove those obstacles. Again, the clear vision, a good, solid business strategy, and not just having the strategy or the vision, but communicating that strategy and vision all the way down to the newest employee. And that's where a lot of organizations and companies fail, is they have this great vision, this great strategy, but they don't tell the people about it. They don't communicate it to the people. The next thing is leadership behavior. one of the things that I've always taught and always talk to leaders about it is, if you want your team to transform and become agile, you yourself must first become agile. Don't just learn a few key words. Actually become agile, not just the mindset, but do and be agile equally. So set the example, and that's how you're going to help cultures change. Another thing is people practices. There are practices that people do that are outside agile practices. Do these practices work? Number one, because just because it's not an agile practice doesn't mean it's bad and doesn't mean it can't be used. There's lots of practices that I had as a software architect and a developer that came out of the software development world, had nothing to do with Agile or any of that, and they're really good practices, and they help me deliver value to my customers. So just because it's not one of those Agile practices in one of those methodologies doesn't mean it can't be used. So look at the practices. The other thing is the management systems. Does the management allow for communication and collaboration, open and transparent communication and collaboration? The organizational and design and the alignment of the teams. How is that organized? Is it organized so that the teams are self-managing? Is it organized so that they can deliver something end to end? And is it organized in such a way that you can be counted on to have small teams deliver something rapidly that is end to end? And when you also look at organizational design and alignment, what are the dependencies? Are teams dependent on each other for work? Because anytime you have dependencies as part of your culture, you're going to have trouble delivering quality stuff on time. The idea is to have small autonomous teams that can deliver end-to-end work with as little dependency as possible. Now, you can't eliminate all dependencies, but you can eliminate most of them. So think about that as well. And then finally, the last one has to do with social engagement and communication. The big thing is, and what I've got down here is, when you have over dependency, we're talking about teams that can't make decisions without the leadership involvement. That's why we talk about teams that should be self-managing, autonomous teams that have the authority to make decisions. Now, you got to be careful with what kind of decisions your teams are allowed to do. One of the practices that I use and have taught before comes from Management 3.0, and it's called Delegation Poker, and you can Google that. Delegation Poker is based on the fact that leaders get together with their teams and they identify the level of delegation that they can perform, all the way from nope, you absolutely must do everything I say, all the way to do what you want to do. I don't even need to be involved. And I think there's like 7 different levels of delegation. And this is by Jürgen Appello. And if you want to know more about it, his book Managing for Happiness is a really good book. I highly recommend it. There's lots of activities in there that will help you, especially the delegation poker one. Okay. And for the translators, if I'm going too fast, because I love this topic, I tend to speak really fast, let me know. I'd be more than happy to recap and go back, because I think we're probably going to finish early. I don't know. We'll find out. Okay. So what's Agile? When we think about Agile, everything boils down to the manifesto, the Agile Manifesto for Software Development. Okay, it starts off with the 4 values and the 12 principles. This is where we get basically our culture from, where it starts. And so, I'm not going to read this for you or go over it. This isn't a basic course on Agile, but everything starts when we think about our organizational values and culture. It starts here with the manifesto. Okay, so we think about that. And that's what determines our principles and practices. And then we go to the 12 principles. And so with the 12 principles, this is what informs us about our culture. And we think about the 12 principles. And I need to stop my sharing for just a minute to get rid of something that's blocking my view, and then I'll share it again. There we go. Okay, so you go all the way back to what are we doing this for? We're doing this to make our customers happy. We want to make sure that we're bringing value to our customers. And when you think about Agile, that's what it's really all about. All of this stuff that you hear boils down to that, is bringing value to the customer, making the customer happy. And the way you make the customer happy is by bringing value to them. Okay. And the rest, I'm not going to read them all. You can look at them. But all of these things, every single principle that you have listed here can be shown in the 6 cultural layers. So when you think about that, each one of these fits within one of these 6. And again, it looks like I've only got about 14 minutes left, so I'm not going to go through that game of matching it up. But this is something you can think about. And again, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Facebook or even send me an email, whatever you want. Carlos knows how to get hold of me. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. I'm pretty good about that. But if you don't ever reach out to me, you're never going to get an answer from me. Okay? So what can we do? What can we do? We talked about a little bit about Agile, the manifesto. We talked. You saw the 12 principles. We talked about what culture is, some obstacles to culture. So what can you do to help culture? So in the chat session, put down some ideas that you think you need to help culture to change. And we'll give it about 2 minutes. How much time I got, Carlos?
Yeah.
Yeah, how much time do we have left?
We have 10 or maybe 15 minutes more. We are on time.
Okay, great.
Don't worry.
Okay, great. Thank you. Because I'm almost finished. So again, in Zoom, put down your thoughts on how you think you can help culture to change. Communication, empowering, new leading. That's interesting. Start with the leadership. Absolutely. But what do you do with the leadership? It's easy to say start with the leadership. That's a great answer. But what do you do with it? Anna, keep communication channels open. Yes. Show rather than preach. Oh, I love it. Yeah. Transparency in everything. Yes, absolutely. Those are all extremely important. We'll give it another minute or so. Experiment. Yeah. Experiment's a great way to find out what'll work and what won't work, and finding out why something doesn't work. Sorry, Sandra, I can't lead. I can only read a little bit of Spanish, so I don't know what you said. Changing our behavior, new way of leading. Absolutely. Absolutely new way of leading. Cherry picking. Carlos Palacio, I don't know what you mean by cherry picking. I think I know, but I'm not certain.
Carlos Palacio, could you open your...
I was going to write it down, but
go.
what I mean is choose whatever works and experiment with it. Don't copy and paste everything.
Okay,
so try to pick the best of everything you experiment.
Awesome, fantastic. Thank you very much, Carlos. I appreciate that. Excellent, excellent. Yeah. Oh, okay. So, all right. So we're going to move on. So, call to action. So, what's next for you? So, when you think about you, and again, I've got for some reason, my chat window keeps getting in the way and I can't see stuff. All of us have a responsibility to, number one, know ourselves. Because in order to change, we have to know what we need to change within ourselves. And so one of the things that I do as just an Agile coach, but as a professional coach, is I help people realize their actions, how they perform, and then I help them dig down into themselves to find out what they really think and feel. Okay? So know yourself first. Because if you don't know what you need to improve in yourself, how can you help a team improve? Or how can you help a leader improve? So identify that. And if you truly can't find out for yourself, and some people can't, find a coach or a mentor that can help guide you. Okay? I've had several great coaches on my own that has helped me tremendously. And that's what I do as well. That's why I love it so much. Next thing is trust. And so when you think about trust, the thing that I always say, and I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, if you've never heard of him, and also a fan of Patrick Lencioni. The thing about trust is, in order to be trusted, you have to be trustworthy. Great saying. I have it on my wall. In order to be trusted, you must be trustworthy. And if your people don't believe you're trustworthy, they will not trust you. So, and the other thing that they say is, in order to be trusted, you must first trust. So if you don't trust people, how can you expect them to trust you? So that's what it's all about. Trust, everything starts with trust. You know, you think of Patrick Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team. Okay, it all starts with trust. Okay, next thing is integrity. Another word for integrity is honesty. Be honest. Have integrity. Empathy. Be empathetic. You know, we think about empathy, we think about putting yourself in other people's position. You know, and in the United States, we have a saying, you truly never know how a person feels unless you've walked a mile in their shoes. Understand each other's perspective. Have empathy for people. Be courageous. Be authentic. Be who you really are. Don't try to be somebody else. I've met coaches that have told me they want to be exactly like some of these big famous coaches. Like I can't think of their names, but they're all over TV. And it's like, you don't have to be a famous showman coach. Just be yourself. Be who you truly are. Same thing with developers. You know, everybody wants to be, Ron Jeffries or Kent Becker. Just be who you are and be authentic with who you are. The other thing is be passionate and caring and understanding. And think about people that work with you and how they feel about you. And the other thing is, if you want to become a leader because you truly care about people and you want to help them grow. If you don't care about people, all you care about is making money, do not become a leader. Don't do that, please. We have too many leaders that all they care about is money and they could care less about you as a human being. Be a leader worth following. Be a leader worth following, okay? So, some calls to action. What are we going to do here? Number 1, reflect on your values and mindset. Apply, if you're going to stay in Agile, apply the Agile values, the practices, and the principles to everything you do. Trust the people you work with. And remember, you have to trust first in order for them to trust you. So do that. Number 2, the next call to action, and I've talked about this before, is completely embody your values, mindset, and principles and practices. Don't just talk about them, but live them. And if you've never done extreme programming, don't tell people you have. If you've never done something, the one thing that I absolutely cannot stand is a saying that has gotten around the Agile community of fake it until you make it. To me, that's being dishonest. You're lying. Don't fake it until you make it. Find a mentor to help train you and work with that person and tell people, I'm just learning. When I first learned how to be a professional coach, an executive coach, I told people, look, I'm just learning how to do this. Will you help me? And they agreed. And the more I coached them and the more I mentored them and the more I was honest with them, the better I got. So don't fake it till you make it. Live it. Don't just talk about it. And then, like I mentioned earlier, be a leader worth following. Be a leader worth following. And when you do that, people are going to follow you. And when you're a leader worth following, you can help cultures change because you're living and breathing that culture that you want to be. Don't just talk about it, do it. That's the only way that real culture change is going to happen. Is you have to be the change that you want to see your people do. Be the change you want to see in your teams. And if you're not willing to do that, don't ask your teams to do that because then you're being a hypocrite. And with that, that is it. I'll open it up for questions. Yes, Carlos Palacio, practice until you make it. And I like the way you think, brother.
Thank
Any
you, Steve.
questions?
If you have some questions, you can put in the chat or you can open your microphone, and go ahead with your questions. Steve, I want to do one question.
Okay.
How we can in the context of, for example, big companies or start to farm these values. How is the best approach? Because as you know, there is a very strange culture in the organizations like banks, and how could we work with that?
Yeah, well, first you want it to, one of the things I talk about and have talked about with teams, and Carlos, you know this as well, seems how you know me, is live the value that you want to see. Because if you're going to try to help people change their values, you have to be an example of that value. And so that's number one. Because you can talk about it all day long, but you have to be example. And as soon as I answer this, Anna, I'll get to your question because I see your hand. So that's the first thing. The second thing is help people. Help people because sometimes people may not understand or know what you're talking about. But be with them, give them time. And the thing I didn't mention is that culture change will not happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a week. It's not going to happen in a year. Some cultures never change, honestly. But those that do want to change, help them and support them. Be there for them and be patient. Transformation never changes. My personal transformation took a long time to do initially, but when the light bulb went on, when I caught it, that was it. I ran with it. And now I have changed so much over the past 20 years. It's unbelievable. People that knew me when I was in the military back in the 1980s and 90s, they see me and they say, "Who the hell are you?" Because they can't recognize me. So that's it. All right, Anna, can you unmute yourself? I want to hear what you have.
Okay, hi. First, I'm
Thank you.
loving this chat, so thank you. And I have like a lot of questions. One is, how would you start? If I see the 6 levers, there's a lot of things you have to do. So
Yes.
I get like this, thinking in, I have to do all the 6
Yep.
from the beginning. So 2 or 3 things, company level, we can start doing to get the momentum of the transport.
Okay. So first communicate what you want to do. think about your vision. Think about where you're at right now. And short term, don't do a big bang. Don't do it all at once. Small sections. Think about what you want to achieve and talk to your people. Find out how they feel. Because if you don't find out, you're going to get resistance. If you just say, we're going to change tomorrow and not talk to people, there's going to be people who resist because they're going to be afraid. So communicate your hopes, your dreams, your desires. Okay. And a tool I use is called the Golden Circle by Simon Sinek. Start with your why. Okay, you shook your hand. Awesome. You know what I'm talking about. Get your why. Talk about your why and get input on your why, and then go from there. Start small. You don't need to change everything. Find something that you and your team or your organization or your company really thinks you need to change, and ask them what makes this important for us to change and how is this going to improve us. Okay? So now I'm going to put a plug in for myself. On my website at Phoenix Rising, and you can get it from me, you know, Carlos has it, all my information. I have a series of articles and newsletters that I've written about how to do an agile transformation from start all the way to execution. But you got to start with your why first, okay? And again, Anna, feel free to reach out to me later on because I know we're running out of time. I'd be more than happy to share my information, and not just Anna, but anybody on this session, okay? Let's see, what else we got, Carlos? Do we have time or are we out? I see it's
we have
1:46.
5 minutes. Yeah, we can be here 5 minutes if for example, Jose Luis has another question, because the next meeting will be at 14. Then go ahead, Jose Luis Calderon.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your talk. It was deeply inspiring. My question is more of a worry that I have found in my short experience as a coach, which is that most large enterprises are looking towards agility as a way to increase their revenue and improve their value delivery. However, what I have seen is that there's a disconnect within the value chain where they hire coaches, they are looking to transform their teams, but not so much the upper management. And the upper management just goes on business as usual. So I'm wondering, how can we deal with such a disconnect if we truly want to address the culture problem?
Yeah, well, that's where having a really strong and experienced coach, agile coach, or consultant comes into play. And that's one of the things that I do is I work with executives because they are the very start. If you don't have executive support, your agile transformation is going to fail. No, it's not going to work correctly. And so you've got to get them on board. That's why I said at the very beginning, it starts with the leadership. The leadership has to understand what it means to have agile transformation, what they need to do, what their involvement is, and help them understand that agile isn't just about increasing revenue, it's about increasing customer value. Because customer value and happiness equates to revenue, but sometimes they don't understand that. They just think, they've heard this thing that Agile is all about getting faster, fast. And it's not, because sometimes in order to go fast, what do you got to do? You have to slow down. You have to slow down. So the key is, and I've told folks this and I've told customers this, look, if I can't work with your stakeholders and your leadership, this is not going to work for me or you. And it's just going to be a heartache, because you're going to change teams and they're going to love it and they're going to have certain expectations, but then the leaders that tell them what to do aren't going to do it. And then they're going to have morale problems. You're going to have retention problems. You're going to have well, Jose, you're nodding your head, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's got to start with the leaders.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. Anything
Okay,
else?
there is another question. Alan, go ahead. Anna, you have another question or is only the, okay, Alan, go ahead. I see your hands up.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and thanks for this. It's awesome, Steve, all that you are showing us. Normally, the culture has other variables that help it to work. Since by itself it can be complex. I mean, and to say an example, there is a theory that says that the culture is supported by a structure. And my question is, do you think that the culture is should we go alone or needs something additional?
Well, remember, culture is made up of the way you work. So it's made up of practices and principles and procedures and values. And so you've got to have everything all at once. And because it does make up the culture. The culture, and when I study culture, the culture has, again, I use my own company as an example. My company has a culture that I created because I'm the founder and the CEO. It has a culture that I embody. And then as I get more and more employees, we evolve that culture based on the initial startup, and then it evolves. And so that you have a company culture, but within that company, you have divisions and organizations and teams, and those all evolve. They take the top level culture and they evolve those into subcultures. And over the years, those evolve. And so that's why I said changing a culture can take years and years and years to change. And so you want to start at the top because they do evolve the cultures. The leadership initiates the core culture. And the thing with values, and I know every single company I've ever worked for has a value statement. But it's got to be more than a poster on a wall, brother. They've got to live those values. It has to be meaningful, and it has to be true and honest. Okay, and so you look at the values. You look at how they actually behave. Do they embody their values? Do they understand their principles behind why they do something? And are the principles and the practices in alignment with their values? And so, when in the early days, that's a big thing for me because I love extreme programming. I started out with XP first. Extreme programming, has principles, practices, and those are fed by their values. And so you think about I have a diagram of principles on the left, practices on the right, and there's a bridge that bridges those two, and that bridge is your values. And so that's how you help culture change, is you have solid practices, solid principles, and they're held together by their values. Okay, does that help? I hope that helped.
Yes, a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, there is another questions. If you want, you can put in the chat, or you can hands up your hand, give out your hand. And for now, I think so it's time. But if some want to come here to continue, I don't know, Steve, if you have more time, or because if somebody has another question, we can
I have time.
Continue here.
Yeah, I have plenty of time. I'm more than happy to stay. I just don't want to delay the other session. But if you want to keep it going, I'm here.
Yeah, I think so. There is no other. I saw the schedule for the event, and I think so. There is time to break out because the event will be start again at the 18. Sorry, 18 15 minutes with the games in the evening and the community circle.
Okay, so Ariel put a question in the chat session.
No,
I can answer. Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the question is why do a lot of organizations want to be agile, make the decision, but when they start to walk the agility way, they aren't prepared to resign things and don't understand agility's objective. I think you answered that question yourself, Ariel, is they don't understand the purpose of agile. They don't understand what it takes to change. Again, there's a misconception that agile is all about getting quicker, but it's not necessarily true. There's plenty of agile transformations that start out slow. Because like I said earlier, sometimes to go fast, you have to go slow. You have to understand not only how to do something, but why you do something. You know, why do we do, you know, I think about, you know, for instance, you know, I'm a bit, like I've said, I'm a big fan of extreme programming. I've practiced it for years. You know, why do we do test-driven development? Well, that's to make sure our code doesn't break. That's to make sure that we produce quality software. That's why we do test-driven development, because we don't want to put crappy software in the hands of customers. Another why is, why do we do pair programming? And so you've got to be able to answer those why questions. So just to go and say, okay, we're going to do Scrum and this is how we're going to do it. And, you know, you got to do your daily stand up, you got to do this, you got to do that, but you don't ever explain why. And so then that's going to cause resistance to change because they don't understand it. Especially, you know, the comment I keep hearing, especially from support people and some developers is, you know, I have a lot more meetings now with Agile than I ever did as a software developer. And I had that initial complaint too. But in reality, if you really look at it, if you're doing it right, you don't have as many meetings. And if you're doing it right, every meeting should have an agenda and objectives. Otherwise, you're wasting time. The other aspect of meetings is, I got nothing to do in this meeting. Why am I even here? Well, why did you get invited in the first place? If you don't have any input and you're not affected by the results of the conversation, why are they inviting you? Okay, so we do a lot of things in Agile and we don't understand why. And, you know, over the past 5 years or so, Agile has become flooded with tons of stuff, unnecessary stuff. We need to clean it up and help people understand what it's really truly all about. And that's about bringing value to the customer. If it doesn't bring value to the customer, why are we doing it? Why? And the other part that I'm very particular about is treating each other as human beings. Don't ever call me an asset. Don't ever call me a resource. We'll have a private conversation because I'm not either of those two. Okay. But yeah, that's why a lot of people, you know, start Agile transformations and stop because they don't understand what it is and they're not doing it correctly. It's a lot of times they go in and people sell them a methodology or a framework, and that's all they do. They just sell them that methodology or framework. They don't really work with the leadership or the teams to help both sides improve. Okay, and that's you know, that's my experience. That's some of the messes I've had to clean up.
Okay, thank you, Steve. I will stop the record of the conference now in order that the translation people that do the interpretation, thank you for Montis and Sebastian. I will stop the record now and